All right. Well, I have sent you something that came into the drive-through email
You have?
because it was kind of long, so I thought I would send it to you. But it follows up on a previous conversation we have had on the show about syndicated wrestling television, and a name that we didn't mention in that conversation, Johnny Doyle.
I'm looking at it right now. That email. The clipping from the Los Angeles Times of November 30th, 1950.
Because we were talking about audience size, like how big
Yes.
could Hollywood wrestling have been? How many towns was it going in? How many stations was it on? What was the audience size?
And this was across the country, is what we were talking about when these tapes were being syndicated to different stations around the country. But as I'm looking at this, the Johnny Doyle was claiming that when wrestling bouts were being televised, 750,000 per show at the Long Beach Arena and 700,000 at Ocean Park. In addition, these two shows are recorded and retelecast over 26 stations in the United States to more than 10 million persons. So he's saying the local Los Angeles airings were 750 and 700,000. And I think we can believe that with the population of Los Angeles, even in 1950, and the fact there were, 3 television stations maybe? If you were watching TV.
And again, going to the note, this was sent in by one of the listeners, Adam Smith, East Yorkshire, England. Let me see what he says here. I'm currently researching that period in Southern California and found the below clipping from the LA Times, 30th of November, 1950. While there's no way to validate the viewing numbers Doyle puts forth, the station numbers are likely accurate. It's also noteworthy that this is after the first wrestler walkout at the Hollywood Legion in February 1950 that caused Doyle to cut down on the amount of weekly television shows to just 2.
Yeah, remember that when TV first hit, the promotion was starting to get deals with TV stations to air the shows in Long Beach and the shows in Ocean Park. And the wrestlers weren't getting paid for that, but because it was on television, it was hurting the live attendance. And that's how
the Olympic. And the Olympic.
Yeah, the Olympic too. And that's how the wrestlers did get paid, on the gates. So wait, what the fuck? They walked out and they not only pressured for money for TV, but also for less television because it was hurting the live event gates. But at the same time, the arena promoters and the athletic commissions, as Adam mentions, were saying, no, put more on TV. But, the wrestlers are like, fuck you, we're getting screwed. And that started that whole brouhaha.
It is interesting. At some point, that was the first time that conversation happened. I'm not saying here, but at some point, late 40s, more than likely early 50s. Hey, we're not getting paid extra in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in Texas, wherever it may be. You couldn't really sell it then like these are being used to promote the local matches.
Yeah.
Because that really wasn't what wrestling TV was then.
Well, they had never at that point sold guys on being on TV to promote the local matches because, as you said, they weren't actually doing that yet. They had just started that when this started. So the promoters just started getting on TV and not paying the boys any extra. Sort of like 40 years later, Vince just starts selling home video and not paying the boys any extra because nobody had ever fucking thought of it before because they didn't do it.
There's a name that needs a good book or someone needs to write something good about him. Johnny Doyle. A major shaker in wrestling and in the middle of a lot of things.
Yeah, and always friendly with Barnett and whoever the major promoters were in the business for years and years.
But he was Barnett's guy until he died.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was the questions. We're going to get more questions on a drive-thru. And of course, if you have questions, you could submit them via email, CornyDriveThru@gmail.com. If you're a member of the Facebook group, we will have a new post up soon. And on Twitter, hashtag CornyDriveThru.
And I have a question for you, Brian Last.
It's a mystery. What's going on? You okay?
I have a question for you, Brian Last. I thought you would say, well, what is that, Jim Cornette?
See, you thought you knew what I was going to do. I threw a curveball.
See, as Mama Cornette used to say, he thought he farted, but he shit. But my question to you is, what in the world is going on at the Arcadian Vanguard Network this week?
Oh, shit. Another fine week of programming on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information on all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook, facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. Want to make note this week on Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon, he has the son of Killer Carl Cox. Here's some great stories there. Upcoming episode coming up with the son of Harley Race. So stay tuned for that. And we'll see who else has offspring that are willing to speak in future weeks on Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon. SUAWpod.com, or look for Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon wherever you find your favorite podcast. Will you stop? You're getting me going. Of course, we're being serious now, folks, because to get the serious wrestling news each and every day, you can get it from The Wrestling News. TheWrestlingNews.com, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. No clickbait, no paywall, just the wrestling news. No opinion, no star ratings, just the news, The Wrestling News. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, The Mothership! Go through the archive, 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcast. Parts 2 and 3 of Scott Cornish on the way. The Scott Cornish tribute, I should say, on the way.
No,
the Mothership.
Parts of Scott Cornish
Stop.
are on the way.
The Mothership.
And we're going to find out who else has offspring that want to talk.
Well, we somehow have to transition from here to something else. But there's so much laughter going on, we will just stop right now, curtly.